in Denver's win, obviously the Joker didn't have the big shot. It was Aaron Gordon.
He did hit that big three, though.
Right, but I'm just saying, like people
Right.
jumping around, whatever, but the Joker wasn't involved in that. But
There's a big but, too.
he had 42 points. He dominated 20 of 22 boards.
That's absolutely
Like
ridiculous.
his stat line is ridiculous. I don't know what else to say. And once again, we talked about it. He's not going to win the MVP. Had a better year than any of the MVP years he had. And we keep seeing this guy do stuff that nobody's doing. It's been incredible.
He's been spectacular, and he's going to become, to me, really difficult to assess when we start talking about his legacy. Like, where do you put him? Where do you rank him? Where do he's got a little Tim Duncan in him that aesthetically, now he passes better than Tim Duncan, so at least you get those dimes that he drops. But just more or less sometimes his game, a little boring, 3 inches and below. So you won't have that flash of some of the other bigs, some of the historical greats, the Jordans, the Bird hitting threes, Magic and the dimes. So he won't have that per se. But I was thinking about this, Rob, and I want to pose this question to you. Will it matter that in his era, he dominated in an era where night in, night out, he was by far the biggest person, aside from Joel Embiid and maybe, if you want to say, a Sabonis for the most part. And the reason I bring that up is sometimes there have been a few players or a few things that have happened in sports in general where you kind of you put a little caveat, if you will. So some people will go with baseball. They'll say those players were great in 1946 and below, but they weren't playing any black players. They weren't playing any Latino players. They weren't, so they were great, no doubt, but the best of the best didn't have a chance to actually play. And so some folks might say that in reference to that. If you go back to some people down Wilt, what's the first thing they say? Man, Wilt was playing 5'10" guys, 6'10" guys. Wilt was great, but he only played against small guys. The only real defender he had was Bill Russell to worry about. People will say that about him, so they kind of use that against Wilt. And I say that because I was really talking to Rob G. I was breaking it down like, I would have loved to have seen Jokic, who you sit next to me every day, who I thoroughly appreciate and respect, and he is incredible. He's the best player in the league, period. Flat out. So make sure I get that clear. Historically great. But I was like, man, I would have loved to have seen what he would have been like the 20-year stretch where he would have had to go up against a Shaq. David Robinson and Tim Duncan were on the same team. Dikembe Mutombo, Kenyon Martin, Gasol, and Bynum were on the same team starting 4 and 5. Kendrick Perkins and Kevin Garnett, the same 4 and 5. Zebo and Marc Gasol, that was the 4 and 5 starters. You had you saw this up close. Rasheed and Ben Wallace, you saw that every night for all those years. Both of them, night in, night out. Hakeem Olajuwon, Shaq, Alonzo Mourning, like that. I do wonder. And I still think he would have been all-star, and I still think he would have been headed on his way to Hall of Fame. But I'm saying, what would it have been like if he had to go up against night in, night out 4s and 5s, the traditional 4s and 5s of the, 90s, late 80s, 90s through the late 2010-ish era.
Yeah. I disagree with you. I think his talent is one that you could look at and say it doesn't matter who was playing. Here's what I'll say. And you brought up the baseball, which people talk about all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Even Babe Ruth, and not all the players, but even Babe Ruth still stands out even during that era of not playing, of segregation. He was so much better than everybody. Nobody diminishes Babe Ruth's ability.
No. You know what I was saying.
But this is kind of what you're talking about. You could question a lot of people during that era and whether or not they were really major leaguers, but Babe Ruth, you can't. Wilt Chamberlain, the reason it wasn't just that he played smaller people, he didn't win as much as, despite all the numbers for people. And what the Joker to me has is, yes, he's dominating, which is what you should do if there's nobody there. If you weren't putting up these kind of numbers and taking advantage of your situation against other people, then you could look at him and say he didn't get enough. You bring up Shaq. people say, man, Shaq really didn't do everything that he
left a little bit to be desired.
I don't think you could look at the Joker and say he left any meat on the bone. Like he's doing stuff that no one has ever done. If he was just doing kind of standard, standard big man stuff.
Anthony Towns.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? One night is good. And
right, and then you could go, well, he's okay, but, there was nobody really there. And the Joker's exact opposite. He's like, my God, every time you turn around and talk about something that no one has ever done, and I think that's what works for him. And not only that, won multiple MVPs, and he won a championship without another All-Star.
I need Jamal Murray to hurt him get All-Star.
Okay.
So we can put that. Cause people be acting like Jamal Murray. You're right.
But that's
you're
a
right.
fact.
Factually,
you know what I mean?
Right.
Like that's a fact. And I think that's why he's different to me.
Here is where my counterpoint, Rob. Everything you said, I get. However, if he had to guard Shaq, Hakeem, Kevin Garnett, Dirk Nowitzki, I didn't even mention Dirk and Tyson Chandler. If he had to guard Paul Gasol, literally night in and night out. I love when I used to hear that. Kenny Smith tells a great story when he would say, Kenny, Hakeem would talk to him and say, Kenny, I'm resting. He's like, what are you resting for? He was like, because I got to play all these guys every night. He was like, you got to go guard all these other people. And I feel like if every night, Jokic also not only get some buckets and get some passes, I got to guard all these guys I name. I got to guard Rasheed. I got to guard Chris Webber. I got to guard Paul Gasol. I got to guard Dikembe and David Robinson and or Tim Duncan and Shaq and or Drake. That's a lot. I got to guard Marc Gasol or Zebo. And I'm also saying that would have been amazing to see. Not that I don't think he would have been all of a sudden terrible. No, for sure. But it would have been interesting because you get a guy like Chris Webber who, wow, Donovan Mitchell just punched on the entire city of Indiana, the entire Indianapolis team right there. So, anyway, I just thought that would, to me, I was thinking about going over the game, going over his greatness.
Well, last night there was a big man out there, right, for OKC?
If you say Hartenstein.
What?
I might jump on the table today.
I'm just saying, how tall is Chet Holmgren?
Losing weight way more than him.
Okay, all right.
Matter of fact, the weight that you has lost is more than him.
Here's my point, though. Last
Chet
night,
Holmgren. I could
the
post
Joker
up Chet.
finished 42 points, 20 rebounds, 6 assists, and in the process, he joined only Giannis, Shaq, and Wilt as the only players in NBA history to post a 40-25 game, okay? Mm-hmm. And in this postseason, the Joker is currently second amongst all players
mm-hmm.
in points, right? First in rebounds, assists, and steals. So he does so many things, and that's just my point.
His
body of work.
Player.
His body of work is so gigantic that you can't, you just can't go, well, I'm going to put an asterisk, or I'm not going to register it because so-and-so was missing. You could do that during this NBA era when it's easier to score. Like we hear players from Europe talk about it all the time. Like, it's easy to score in the NBA now with
lack of physicality and all that.
And all that stuff. So should we say, and as people were talking about James Harden, or could we make the case, well, it's easy to score in this NBA now? Are we going to discount what he was able to do, you know what I mean, and what Steph and some of the other people, because of the lack of defense that we saw, at least when I was covering the league in the 80s and the 90s, mm-hmm. late 80s and the 90s and early 2000s.
I think another point that I use is where we kind of have these moments where you kind of got to – I enjoy having smart conversations about sports with people, because you brought up – we were talking about earlier with Isaiah Thomas. People, oh, man, Isaiah Thomas went through Jordan, Larry Bird, and then Magic Johnson. So I use this example too. Everybody's like Steph is the best shooter I've ever seen, greatest shooter of all time. But there are a lot of people right now in the NBA, in my opinion, who are only in the NBA because of the current way the game is played. So they're allowed to, hey, we're going to have you on because you get to shoot. Duncan Robinson, and he went to Michigan, so I hate to be like that. Duncan Robinson is not in the NBA 15 years ago. Am I lying, Rob G? But he's literally a liability on defense. Everybody attacks him, but he's allowed to shoot 12 threes a game. And I use that to say, when people forget, if I let Mark Price, Joe Dumars, Dale Ellis, let's go Steph Curry daddy, Dale Curry, hey, you can shoot 12 threes tonight. Hey, Reggie Miller, if you shot 18 threes tonight, we wouldn't bat an eye. So I use that as sometimes where we have to remember, and people tell me, oh, this person's a better shooter. He's a better shooter than so-and-so. I said, man, Larry Bird only shot like 2.8 threes a game back in his day. If I told Larry Bird he gets to shoot 15 and we wouldn't even think twice, what the heck would he have been? And
you just said a name that brought back to me one of the best nicknames given to a player. You just talked about Dale Ellis. Peter Vesey from the New York Post was the NBA guy for a long time.
Yep.
And the Trailblazers had all kinds of legal problems, guys getting arrested and all kinds of stuff.
Whoa, yeah.
So he called him Jail Ellis. That was his nickname.
Ellis.
I'm sorry.
Was he with the Jail Blazers too?
Yes, they were called the Jail Blazers.
Yeah.
You got it. I think the Joker has something really, really special. And I don't care what era he's playing in or what the circumstance or situation is. I think he is, to me, an all-time great. And I'm not sitting here, he's crowning him, saying he's the greatest player ever played.
He is great.
But he's an all-time great.
I just would have loved to have seen him night in, night out have to go up against 4s and 5s that were legitimate 4s and 5s every probably 65 to 75% of the nights. And I got to go up against Ben Wallace and Rasheed Wallace. I got to go up against Kevin Garnett, Kendrick Perkins. I got to go up against Andrew Bynum and Pau Gasol.
And I still think he would have done well. I just really well. I just think he is. I think he is a scorer, a rebound. I mean, he's a great passer. I'm not saying that like he's going to. I just don't see him dropping off because he would have other people.
That could be. I'd love to have love to have seen that because it's a different game when I got to prepare for not only to be defended but also have to defend this.
There's nothing he can do.
No. He can't. This is just me throwing it out just to you, just kind of getting your thoughts. I was watching the game thinking about that. Like he's incredible, but I would love to have seen him back. And also just actually, by the way, it doesn't have to be a negative. Like just to see his battles going up against other bigs. You know, like when we have historical battles, Hakeem Olajuwon versus David Robinson. Those were amazing, right? Seeing some of these guys go, Alonzo and Shaq go at it, and seeing Powell and Andrew Bynum go up against Perkins and Kevin Garnett, for the battle of the bigs in those series. Like that is also what I'm saying too, just to have seen him have these battles. Because the one we get geared up for is what? Him and AD, and then him and Embiid. Those are like the ones we get geared up for. The matchups, not aesthetically to see him play is it pleasing. I'm meaning he only gets 2 matchups that really matter individually. You follow what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like we love to see, Jordan going up against Clyde, Jordan and Reggie Miller, Jordan.
I just think he's such a he's such a generational talent. Like I've never seen anybody dominate and just and all, even the analytics, like the numbers, all match up. They're not like they're empty stats or you know what I mean, or stat padding or whatever. Like they all match up.
He is, and he's clutch and he's great. I just would have loved to have seen him have some nights where he goes up against his rival, who is Pau Gasol, or his rival Zebo, or his these bigs, or Marc Gasol. He doesn't have that, and I would have loved to have seen that.